Hello and welcome to today's webinar presented by Celonis and Protiviti. Today we'll be talking about the next generation of internal audit and how this aspect is powered by process mining and specifically the Celonis tool. So thank you for attending today. We have a large audience, so we want to get started and we have a lot of content to get through. So we'll just go through a few administrative items, and I do want to remind everybody we are recording today's webinar and it will be available for on-demand viewing following the live event. And if you are experiencing any technical difficulties during the webinar, please do let us know by submitting questions through the Q&A area. We will work with you to help you resolve your issue or provide you some advice. And we do encourage you to submit your content questions throughout the webinar. We did receive a number of questions in advance, and we will be addressing those throughout the webinar, and we will be addressing as many as possible during the dedicated Q&A scheduled at the end of the hour. I do want to remind everybody we are offering 1.3 CP credits for the 60-minute webinar. To be eligible, you will need to answer 3 out of the 4 polling questions. So we will be administering those polling questions throughout the webinar, and we will always prompt you for those questions and take you through them so you know that they're popping up on your screen. If you haven't updated your Adobe Flash on your computer, we do recommend that you do so. That is one of the key factors in being able to see the poll questions pop up on your screen. And then the live attendees will receive their CPE certificates via email within 60 days following the live webinar date. The CPE certificates will not be available for download. Following the event, we will email those directly to you. You are welcome to listen into the audio portion of the webinar on the phone if you are having trouble with the audio on your computers. We do have this conference line. There's a toll-free number for the U.S. and Canada participants, and then we do have an international toll number that you can leverage as well if you're dialing in from outside the United States. You are able to download a copy of today's presentation, and this phone number is available in that PDF file that you can download. I do want to introduce our 2 presenters today who are very well versed in the whole concept of process mining. Our first presenter is Andrew Struthers-Kennedy, who's a managing director and leads Protiviti's global IT audit practice. He's based in the metro Washington, D.C. area, and his specialty is all the enabling technologies that are helping us move the internal audit down the path of the next generation. Christoph Kisker is the head of digital consulting at Celonis and is responsible for the global partnership between Protiviti and Celonis. And prior to joining Celonis 3 years ago, he focused on integrating process mining at consulting and audit organizations for internal audit and external audit service lines. So thank you, gentlemen, for presenting today. And Andrew, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Lark, thanks so much, and good day, everyone. For those of you that are regulars on Protiviti webinars, in late March, we hosted a webinar to review the results of our 2019 Internal Audit Capabilities and Needs Survey. And during that webinar, we profiled Celonis process mining as what we think is a great example of the type of technology solution that internal auditors should not just be familiar with, but also exploring, evaluating and really adopting for their use. Through the Q&A and then the post-webinar survey, we just noticed there was tremendous interest in the topic. So here we are today providing a deeper dive into what we again think is a really exciting new area of analytics that represents perhaps one of the best examples of the transformative potential of a next generator's transition into the digital world. We'll discuss, and I think it also serves as really an excellent example of where a combination of rethinking the audit process and leveraging available technologies drives maximum value rather than doing one in isolation. So today, Christopher and I will be covering the topics that you see on the screen. So introducing process mining concepts along with key features and benefits, discussing the importance of data and technology and the advancement of next generation internal audit concepts, and then also describing and demonstrating how process mining tools can really drive greater efficiency, effectiveness, and deeper insight, and really support the delivery of fundamental change in the way that internal audit activities are performed. So as we've reviewed during prior webinars, sort of our vision for the component or area of focus for internal audit functions as they move towards next gen. You can see them on the screen: governance, methodology, enabling technologies, and these are all areas that are sort of interrelated, and are the needs and capabilities are being driven in large part by similar and rapid advancements in the business world as organizations embrace their own innovation. And as the risks that organizations face and the related audit universes change, the focus and skill sets needed by internal auditors must also change. And that's a change that's really not possible unless internal audit also innovates and transforms itself. So in order to be able to support our organizations in such a fast-paced, innovative, digitally transformative environment, internal audit needs to be exploring and doing exactly the same for itself. So kind of, I guess, what do we mean by next generation? We mean a function that embraces sort of an agile, holistic approach focused on the three components: governance, methodology, technology, while also delivering a stronger assurance and more valuable insights to the business in an efficient manner. So that's the classic, do more, give us more with the same, or preferably even less. So I think next generation really boils down to, an agile, multi-skilled, technology-enabled function, able to recognize and react to emerging risks and changes to the organization's risk profile, and do that quickly enough to reflect them in the audit plan so they can be addressed in the assurance that the function delivers. And I think, traditional methodologies, long trusted point solutions, and kind of conventional thinking just really can't accomplish these tasks efficiently, and certainly not at the speed of change. So, the objectives of these transformations: efficiency, adaptability, increased engagement, deeper, more valuable insight, they're all pretty easy to understand. I think what's perhaps a bit more challenging is the mechanics to implement these types of changes, and they do really vary across organizations. But nearly all of the transformations that we've seen audit functions, other assurance and compliance functions go through, have addressed most, if not all, of the competencies, qualities, and components that are reflected on the graphic. So, today we are going to sort of further explore the data and technology component and discuss why embracing analytics and new technologies should not just be a mere sort of initiative, but really fully embedded in the audit methodology and an integral part of what internal audit does, which I think has been a persistent and consistent challenge for many internal audit functions. And in particular, we're going to profile Celonis process mining. But before we do that, I think we're going to just take a couple of polling questions. And the first is really a base level set. What is your current level of familiarity with process mining? And we'll give a minute or two to address that. And just a reminder, to be eligible for CPE credit, as Lark said, you are required to respond to 3 out of the 4 polling questions, and you do need to do that through the webinar interface. Okay, so here we see the results. We see I guess, a pretty small percentage who feel they have a high level of familiarity, and then we see that the vast majority with mid to low to none. So hopefully, if you get asked that question again an hour from now, you'll have a very different answer, and you'll be a lot more familiar with not just the core concepts of process mining and how Celonis deliver those, but also how internal audit and other similar functions can take advantage of those capabilities to drive improvements into the way that audits and other assurance activities are performed. So let's take just a quick second polling question here. Do you in your organization and your teams have goals to make better use of data and or technology in the performance of your activities? And as you're answering that, I would encourage you to think of that in the context of not just your own team's strategy and plans, but also in those that are sort of laid out for you by your core stakeholders and what they have laid out as expectations and requirements for the organization. Perhaps what you hear when you go to audit committee, or you hear from what happens in audit committee, or you hear in meetings with executive management and other senior leadership. What are their expectations? How are those changing? Are they asking for you to use more data? Are they asking about emerging and now established technologies and how you're making use of them? Okay, so I think no huge surprise there. An overwhelming majority are saying yes. And I think when you combine perhaps that overwhelming position with what we saw in the prior polling question, where there's still a need to get up the learning curve around process mining, Celonis process mining technology, I think what we're going to cover in the remaining time will be very valuable for you, and hopefully will generate a lot of interest and a lot of questions that we're going to make sure we leave sufficient time to address at the end. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Christoph, who will introduce Celonis process mining and run through a few key features, and then we'll continue from there. Christoph, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks for organizing. Just confirm you can hear me?
Loud and clear, Christoph, yep.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for setting me up. I'm very happy to speak about this technology of process mining. First of all, how it works in your organization, and also touch base on the values for organization in general. And then we dive into the use case of internal audit. And thank you very much, Protiviti, to have us here and to provide the value of process mining in a context of internal audit to clients. Now, just a step back. When we're talking about how it works, we need to have a look where data are actually generated within the organization. Every process in an organization is supported by IT systems. Obviously, you have in mind the SAP or Oracle ERP system in the core, but it could be also like a scan provider, a bot, anything that creates data. And these IT systems supporting the processes, they record and store any activity of employees, of users in the systems. So if anyone in the organization clicks on a button on the SAP system, this action is stored. So we know exactly that a certain person clicked on a certain time, a certain activity. And this is very valuable. Any IT system stores this data. What process mining do, align this activity along a certain object that is running through the organization, like a sales order or a purchase order. And following this purchase order, how it runs through the company and across departments, what's happening with this purchase order, that's how we can reconstruct and visualize the business processes of companies. Now, it's completely fact-based, completely quantifiable, because in the first step, we are very diagnostic and only looking at actually what we see in the system itself. So, and this is also completely across all like source systems, SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, and also third-party provider like homegrown systems and so on. Based on this technology, Celonis Process Mining offers a solution that makes it very easy to connect to different systems like SAP, like Oracle, like Dynamics, and we call this making an event collection. It takes certain information out of the data log of IT system, and with that reconstruct and visualize the business processes. So we call that process discovery, because you go a step back, no assumption, no hypothesis, you just are looking at the facts and start exploring the process, how it actually runs through the company, with all the inefficiencies and all the compliance issue happening at every client around the world. Then you can do the process analytics, where you drill down on certain criteria, like you want to look at certain vendors or certain materials. And obviously, we created a lot of machine learning algorithms that makes it possible to forecast, for example, the frequency of processes. Now, I would like to jump to a quick demo now, but before I do that, just have a look what kind of clients already using process mining. And if you're looking at the clients list and the custom references here, you see it's completely diagnostic of the industry, but also around, on the sides. So all the way from manufacturer industry like Siemens, ABB, to telecommunication, Vodafone, to banking and insurance. Because it doesn't matter which industry it is, all IT systems around the world logs the data of the activity of users. And obviously, we want to focus on processes that have a lot of frequency in big companies, but it also works for small companies. We have a lot of clients, also 400 people, 500 people, and that is diagnostic in the size as well. Now, currently, process mining has a lot of traction, also recognized by Gartner, which just started to having a report, a second report coming up on that, and what is about, and to make it more like understandable, I jump now to the demo, and together we will have a look at how it actually looks in live. Here, I started to share my screen, and I hope everybody has the screen in front of you. So we are looking at the purchase-to-pay process that could happen anywhere in the world through our clients, through our industries. I assume most companies do have a purchase-to-pay process, and I hope you can identify also with the process step that a typical purchase-to-pay process takes, all the way from create purchase requisition item, create purchase order, approve the purchase order item, I sent the purchase order, I received the good, scan the invoice, and then book the invoice. That's actually happening 1,120,000 times a year in this data set of this company. And
Hello, moderator. This is Andrew. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think we had some problems with Christoph's audio. I will do my best to pick up where he left off. Give me 1 second.
Christoph is now back on the line.
Sorry about that, Andrew. I'll take over.
Okay, go ahead.
We are looking at the second most frequently variant on the process, and see here that in this variant, in 21,000 cases, the purchase requisition item was bypassed. Now, this is without any hypothesis or assumption. It's just like the facts telling us, and we don't know if it's good or bad in your industry or your client. It's showing you that it's actually happening. Now, another variant, so process a way that process can flow is it's very interesting because after the purchase order was sent, we do have a price change in 21,000 cases. Now, if you want to look at the performance view on that, you can see that also the throughput time increased. Instead of 8 days, we had 7 plus 10 days. Now, we can also look at the automation rate, how many percent is actually automated on that. The next variant of that is very interesting, especially in the context of internal audit or compliance, because here the process starts with scan invoice. And after the scan invoice, we create the purchase order is approved, and so on. So obviously, we completely bypass any approval strategy up here. And as you know, this is maverick buying. So that is something that we just explore, and then in the second step, drill down in the details. In that way, we can go through all the different variants, how it actually the process runs through the company. And we see here in the right lower part, it's 525 different variants or the ways that the process can take. And currently, we're looking at 82% of the cases, which would be, if I work for the performance of this process, that would be enough. But obviously, we are looking more on from a compliance case. So we want to see every single outlier of the process. That's what we are looking now. Now you can drill in and see every activity happening in the process itself. Now let's learn more about the process. And I changed the sheet here to the overview sheet. On the left side, we have our process explorer again, and the right side, some BI components that help us to drill down on a root cause, for example. The third variant was this price change, so we're interested. And the fourth one would be the one where we start with scan invoice. That was the maverick buying, as we learned before. So that is something I would like to learn more about, so I drill down on that. I have now all the cases in my company that have started with scan invoice, so the maverick buying cases. And we filter on here because there's a peak in September and October on that. Maybe I'm only responsible for the US organization, want to filter on that. And now I can drill down on the vendor, for example, where these maverick buying cases have material, company code, document, and so on. This dashboard is completely free to define, and Protiviti is happy to help you with that. It's just like a starting point, how to drill down and learn more about the processes, from taking a step back and seeing the full transparency of everything happening at the company within the process, drilling down to single cases, single outliers, and learn more about the root causes through the drill down. And now this is more the technology part. I would like to give it back to Andrew to learn more about how internal audit departments can use that.
Great. Thanks so much, Christoph. That was an excellent overview introduction. I know we're going to spend more time in the tool looking at other features and use cases. I think before we move on to the next section, just take another polling question. And here, our stakeholders in your organization asking you to provide deeper and more valuable insights. It's a pretty straightforward question. And as I allow you time to respond to that, again, 3 out of 4 responses required for CPE. I'll try and address a couple of the items we're getting in through the Q&A process. So there's a question here that I think we'll start to address in the next section, but it's a good segue, which is basically, are we seeing internal auditors using Celonis, or is it embedded in the operations of the business, and how might the two groups be using the software differently? So I think great question. The answer is both. And I think in many cases where we're engaging with someone other than maybe the first line of defense, so the business functions to deliver Celonis capabilities, oftentimes and often fairly quickly, the business gets interested in having access to that capability directly. So that moves more from a sort of a project-based use to ongoing use for monitoring, for driving action from the data that's being delivered. So we're going to cover in this section internal audit uses, and we'll certainly try and make the connection to how that is then sort of transitioned oftentimes to more of an ongoing monitoring and usage tool. And we'll get to, there's a number of questions coming in. We'll do our best to kind of get to as many as we can throughout and during the Q&A. So again, I think similar with the prior question around attempts to use data and technology more, we are being asked to provide deeper insights, more value in our reports and our findings, and do all of that in a more efficient way, right? So in the same time, if not less time. So as I think is probably starting to be revealed, hopefully is being revealed. The potential for internal audit here really is tremendous, and I think there's just a few things that I'll offer as I start to talk through the next couple of slides. So the opportunity to significantly support or enable walkthrough activities, and we'll explore that in a bit more detail. If not get to the point where walkthroughs can be largely automated. You saw through the features that Christoph just demonstrated the ability to take underlying transactional data and render process visualizations. The ability then to quickly and easily identify unusual or non-compliant or even inefficient transaction processing. So through the variants that we just saw, and we'll explore further. And oftentimes we'll get a limited view based on our discovery discussions, our walkthroughs on what's actually happening in a process. We can now get a full view, a comprehensive view. The ability to kind of quickly identify areas of audit focus to support risk assessment at an enterprise or a project level, and see those unusual paths, those paths that result in unfavorable KPIs or business performance that we might want to dive into, so that we can respond to what we just heard, hearing loud and clear, which is you need to provide more value, more deeper insights, and do it without increasing costs. So we can point our audit resources, our assurance resources at the areas that need most attention. And then I think, and we'll underscore this a bit further, but assist in really the quantification of findings and increase the confidence levels that the business has, that when they invest resource, when they pursue a change, they can have a level of confidence that perhaps previously wasn't possible, at least not to the same degree, about the benefits they can kind of realize from making that change. So this slide sort of shows some of the challenges that I think we often encounter when we're doing or have been doing traditional internal audit work, and in particular it kind of shows where data analytics kind of sometimes fits into the picture. We're certainly not going to review kind of every word on this page, but data analytics often isn't done early enough. It's not done to support risk assessment, to support discovery. It's used in a limited point solution basis, and many times we get data too late. It takes time to validate. We don't get the results in time. We're under pressure to issue audit reports, and the analysis is therefore is often then just put on the shelf, not used, or used in a very limited way. And then as you kind of move through the cycle, getting to reporting, I think we do our very best to provide those insightful recommendations, remediation options for management to consider, but they're not always, if often, data and evidence driven. So the level of confidence in what can be accomplished by making such a change is perhaps not as high as it could or should be. So then when we kind of compare that to what does process mining powered, Celonis process mining powered internal looks like, there's a shift here, there's some change here, and I'll just sort of highlight those components. You see up front, we're using the data analysis. We're using it to understand the business context, to discover how the processes are actually being performed, to get that complete view, so that the table is turned a little bit and we go to the kickoff meeting with perhaps a better view than the process owners might have around how their processes are being performed. That's not intended to be a criticism. That's just individuals sort of work off limited knowledge and certainly don't have that view that Christoph showed in the spaghetti diagram of how processes are performed. So we can go in there, we can be focused with them. We don't need to go over everything start to finish. We can say, these price changes, these unusual buying behaviors, this is where we want to focus, and we want to focus on it for specific vendors or buying entities. So it allows us to be much more focused, more efficient, and more effective, and provide that deeper insight from really the first meeting. And then as you kind of move through the process, you've got what I mentioned is the opportunity to deliver much higher impact reports. You've got the ability to provide deep data to support and evidence to support an observation and a recommendation, so that the business can then make a really well-measured decision around how to invest resource. And then to tie into the question that I attempted to answer during the polling, you've got that opportunity to then convert from offline analysis, what we call it, or sort of project-based analysis, to something that's more continuous and is more of a continuous audit, continuous monitoring type solution, and even offers the opportunity, as we'll explore, to intervene and take action when you see something deviating from the preferred pathways. So I think just tremendous opportunity throughout the audit lifecycle, from risk assessment planning through to audit and ongoing monitoring, that a tool like Celonis process mining really affords internal audit teams. So let's take a deep dive or a deeper dive into walkthroughs, which is something that every internal audit function has to conduct at some point in time, if not for every project, then for the majority of them. And traditional walkthroughs, and I won't sort of drain this necessarily, but the capability that Celonis affords us is really a marked shift from traditional walkthroughs and resulting audit tests that we then perform. So, using traditional walkthroughs, we document the process as it's described to us. We create documents that are often hard to maintain, so think Visio diagrams and other narrative-based documents that get stale quickly and are troublesome to maintain over time and time-consuming. We often end up focusing on kind of that core transaction flow rather than the instances of unusual activity, and those core transaction flows are often the better controlled areas. We rely on kind of the luck of the draw from random sampling to identify outliers, especially if you're doing non-statistical based sampling, picking samples of 5, 10, 25, and 50, I think, if you're really enthusiastic. We lack the ability to quickly evaluate the impact of process changes and do some of that what-if modeling. And then we're sort of limited on our ability to deliver that real deep business insight and meaning and help drive business confidence in the transformation steps that they want to undertake. And that's one of the most broadly kind of communicated and reported challenges with undertaking any type of transformation initiative, be it department level or enterprise level, is starting in the wrong place and going down a path with resources and financial commitment in the wrong area, and then having to backtrack, or that completely derailing the initiatives. So when using process mining, we can see how the process is actually performing. Our understanding is data-driven. The flowcharts that we create are now interactive and dynamic, and they can be easily refreshed with sort of minimal effort. The changes to the processes are obvious, and kind of their impact to the business can be quantified. And it allows for kind of closer to continuous auditing, alerting, monitoring, however you want to define that. And again, as we'll see, the ability to kind of intervene and take action. So, again, I think process mining represents a really great example of this transformative potential that a next generation or a future auditor is capable of as they transition into the digital world. So we're now going to jump back into the demo. I'm going to show a few features in addition to what Christoph had covered. Okay, great. Hopefully that is coming through for everyone. So Christoph spent some time on the Variant Explorer and showing you how you can identify the different pathways through which transactions are processed, how you can go and identify at the first level, or with some deep dive into what attributes are contributing to that undesirable behavior. So I can filter again here on price changes. I can go into my overview screen. I can see some additional information that we've already seen, and I can see that there's some spikes in activity here, so I can do a further filter on those 2 months. I can see that a particular purchasing entity has particularly problematic in this area. I can filter there, and I can then go and I can say, show me my the vendors that are contributing most significantly to this issue. So in this case, it's the umbrella corporation. So you can see across the top, I've applied these 4 filters very quickly. Those are filters that will now transition with me as I move to other screens. And I've been able to do a deep dive that, frankly, and I've been doing data analytics work for a long time, it would be very hard to accomplish, in particular as fast as we just did it with other and traditional analytics solutions. So we've been able to get down to an area of particular interest and got it down to 2 months and a particular vendor and a particular purchasing entity very, very quickly. So I think some of this hopefully is just of high interest and is generating some excitement. And you may be thinking, well, we have the analytic solutions, we write rules, we run tests. How is this different? I think hopefully the differences that we've demonstrated so far are very obvious. The ability to create these visualizations that are interactive and dynamic and allow you to drill down and isolate areas of interest. But you can also do what I'd call traditional analytics audit tests. So, a favorite of the auditor is the Benford's analysis. So here we have our Benford's curves, first, second, third, first digit, first 2 digit, first 3 digit views, the statistical view versus the actual. And we can, there are a number of filters we can apply. And we see here there is an outlier, what appears to be an outlier. So we can use all of these components are interactive and dynamic. We can click through, we can apply that filter, and then we can actually go and see the details. Right? So we can see the transactions that are creating that statistical anomaly. We can see the vendor. We can see they are all different materials. Many of them are different materials. They're all for the same quantity and at the same price. Perhaps looks unusual. So you can then go and actually create a bookmark here that will allow you to capture this for future reference. So instead of having to do the multiple click-throughs, even as easy as it was, you can go back and you can click through and create that bookmark and even share that bookmark with others who have the same access to the Celonis platform as you do. So amongst an audit team, amongst a management team that's using this for operational purposes. So I will clear my filters. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on a view that I think is very, very interesting and has clear value from an internal audit standpoint, which is this conformance feature. And it allows you to define a process model. And you do that through a number of different ways. There are some pre-built process models by business process. You can also create your own drag and drop, very easy, sort of Visio style drag and drop capability with some logic here. This is a sequencing logic. You can also upload a process model using a BPMN format, or you can mine the data. And if you happen to have a couple of variants that you think are your preferred pathways for data to flow through, you can define those as your target processes. So once you've defined your model, you can overlay that to the data. And here we see we've got a 57% conformance rate in our transaction set. We've got a real dip in our conformance in sort of month 3, the end of Q1, calendar Q1. You can see again some of this KPI information, this business value that you really would struggle to get through traditional analytic solutions. You can see it takes me longer to get from start to finish. Information rate, is longer. And then I can see the violations. It tells me which activities either are happening or not happening, or are not in the sequence I've defined that create a violation. And this is all, again, interactive dynamics. I can click through and I can see, a big culprit here for my violation against my process model is this price change activity that we reviewed earlier. And now I can see, again, some of what kind of Christoph was demonstrating with the KPIs in the Variant Explorer. I'll just go back for reference. And you can see if I put that throughput time on and I go and look at this third variant, I can see that takes 17 days to process through a price change versus 8 days when there's no price change activity. And I see that same that same characteristic, that same KPI in the extra days it takes to kind of process through. And then I can actually drill down and I can use some intelligent capability within and algorithms within the Celonis platform to actually help me identify the attributes of the contributors towards that violation. So again, from an audit standpoint, I can go from defining a process model that might be my policy, that might be something else, and I can run that against my data set and very quickly drill down, focus on my violations, find the things that are contributing most significantly to those violations, and spend my audit time, my audit effort, or at least most of it in those areas. There are a number of other features here. I think an interesting one is the ability to use data that's in your transactional systems and user information to perform transaction-level segregation of duties analysis. So that's not just the what could happen, but that's the what did happen. And if you're an organization that struggled with some of this in the past and struggled to kind of prove out that even though individuals may have had more access than they should have had, they didn't actually use it. This is a way that, SOD quantification that you can actually go in and validate. So I can look at, 2 items here, like creating a purchase order and approving a purchase order. And I can apply those 2 activities, those 2 responsibilities, and I can see all of the transactions here, the users that perform both of those for a given case. And I can see my value that's at risk. These are all customizable dashboards. You can kind of configure them to show and to reflect whatever you would like. You can also see, for which vendors is that occurring most significantly, and I can actually go and look at the transactions. All of this content is exportable in multiple forms. So if you want to take it offline, send it to someone else, do some deeper analysis offline, perhaps using a different tool set, then all of that's available. All of that capability is there. So just a couple of things that, while there are tremendous features that don't really exist in any other analytics solution at the moment, you can also build in your core audit analytic tests into the platform as well, and sort of deliver that all through kind of under one roof. So we'll pause there on the demo. There's sort of one more feature set that I think we'll touch on, and kind of at this point, Christoph, I'm going to hand back over to you to take us through the next section.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was very impressive. We learned how we can identify an outlier compliance issue in a process, and we're talking about millions of cases, purchase order, sales order runs through the organization, and we can easily identify fact-based quantifiable outliers, compliance issue, drill down on root causes of this outlier, and identify single documents. So that is the analytics part, the power of process mining to identify these outliers. Now we would like to take it a step further and turn the insights from the analytics part into action, helping you to set up a true digital audit department. And some of the features I will highlight now might help you doing that. Now, the underlying part was the process mining. That is a layer across all of your IT systems that helps you to analyze. And now we take it a step further and say, we can actually help you to take action after compliance issues were detected. One of the features, there are many out there, but in terms of the time we have left, I would like to focus on one feature, that is the Celonis Action Engine. The Celonis Action Engine is a proactive approach to avoid compliance issues before they actually occur. What does it mean? Having a look at this Action Engine, it learns from historic data, for example, what compliance issues were in the past, and so on. So taking historic data and using machine learning AI algorithm to learn to detect currently happening compliance issue and turn that into action, meaning triggering workplaces, people in the company to take action. Not only people, but also bots. But let's talk a little bit more later. So for example, from an analytics part, one of the analysis a lot of clients that Celonis is using is detecting duplicate payments. Might be relevant for you too. So there's analysis that shows any duplicate payment that was made in the last 10 years. Now, we learn about these duplicate payments, and it's great to know about them and that it happened in the last 10 years, but we obviously want to try to avoid them. So Celonis learns what a duplicate payment is and what it was in the past, and now can, in the moment that a duplicate payment is about to be done, triggering a certain action to say to employee, hey, you're doing a duplicate payment. Please stop that or reconsider. Now, I would like to jump in a demo to show you the action. Now, welcome back to Celonis. This is a level above the analysis we just saw, and here a lot of analysis we could jump into, but we want to go to the action engine. Now, maybe you're responsible for the P2P, OTC, ITSM department, but for this case, I would like to select the AP department and see what kind of action are actually triggered by Celonis in this department. Now, there are a lot of action currently triggered to certain people like Jakob, Chris, Andy, these employees of this department. Some bots are actually working currently in the department itself, so these can be triggered. And a lot of them are regarding performance issues and how to improve the performance of a process. But some of them are actually more focused on compliance issue. And as I explained before, we can now detect, for example, these duplicate payments. So there's a signal now sending to Andy, say, hey, wait, you are about to do a duplicate payment. And this is something that is real-time, triggering to his workplace through an email, for example. It could be also Slack or any communication possibilities you have in the company. And there is basically an email then coming in to Andy say, hey, wait, the invoice that potentially has duplicates were found based on historic data, what we learned, the algorithm we use, and please reconsider, please really check if we didn't pay that with a slightly different name or so on. So this is one example how we took from analytics into action, helps you to to update or like set up a digital audit department and taking full advantage of the digital possibilities that are now available. And that is happy to answer any questions in the end, but for now, I would like to give back to Andrew.
Great, thanks, Christoph. And I'll just maybe provide a couple of thoughts on the Action Engine. And I mean, I think there's clear applicability to the first line, so that the business-facing folks, those that are on the keyboards operating the business processes, the activities, the controls, and having that ability to kind of alert them, real time or almost before real time of problems that are going to occur, and allowing them that opportunity to intervene to either ensure a key business metric is met, or a key control is not violated in some way. I think those use cases are clear. I think there are also kind of clear uses here for internal audit and other functions, risk and compliance functions, in their ability to use this as a monitoring tool, an alerting tool, perhaps not drive the direct intervention, but be able to observe when things are changing in process, align with management commitments, recommendations that have been made, remediation plans that have been published. So I think all of that, with sort of this feature around Action Engine, I think are, again, kind of clear cases and benefits for internal audit use. So now we get to our final polling question, and I think now that you've learned more and had the benefit of sort of 3 snippets and demos of different features in Celonis, in which areas do you think kind of process mining technology can drive the most value? And we've tried to kind of give you the spectrum of sort of an internal audit lifecycle, everything from risk assessment through to remediation validation. If you feel strongly that it can support all of them, then the final radio button there is the one to click. I'm just going to jump into the Q&A queue and see if there's anything that I can try to address. I think there's been a couple of other questions that have come up that I think we've sort of addressed along the way. Comments and questions that this is a tremendous tool for business purposes. I think there's use cases all along the 3 lines. And again, oftentimes the first line, when they see this capability, they're asking questions about how do we get access to it, how do we use this for ourselves. A question around what level of understanding, appreciation for this type of tool, and I think it applies to the broader set of sort of emerging technologies. Does the audit committees have awareness of? And in my opinion, and this is based on some of my own experiences, is probably similar to the results that we got from the first polling question, which is on the low end of the spectrum. So I think there's tremendous opportunity. We covered this in our capabilities and needs webinar. There's tremendous opportunity to do some education to help make audit committee members aware of the capabilities that are now available. We find in our studies and our surveys have shown that oftentimes that push of information to the audit committee results in a pull of interest and can often result in additional funding. So we would encourage you to be taking this sort of information and other technologies and sharing them with your audit committee members. So good. So I think across the board, some good responses. I think all of the above. It's very encouraging to see that response, because I think we agree in where Celonis and Protiviti have partnered to work with organizations sort of on an operational standpoint or on a compliance or audit standpoint. It really is across the spectrum of activities that we've been able to implement and deliver value. And I'll say just on remediation validation, because that's sort of slightly lonely there at below 1%. The ability to monitor for changes as they are being made and to demonstrate, and not just that a change is made, but that change in KPIs that's associated with those changes or process improvements is a powerful benefit that the Celonis features kind of allow us to realize. So I just want to kind of revisit the next generation framework. And I think while we've spent the majority of today's time reviewing the ways in which the use of data and technology can be used to drive and accelerate internal audit transformation. The three elements, governance, methodology, and technology are really interrelated, and they impact the people, the process, the data, the technology that support the internal audit function. So, focusing on just individual components, in our experience, yields limited benefit, and sort of that more holistic change that many audit functions are after is the key to accelerated and higher value outcomes. So, as an example, process mining used as a new capability, but only as part of the traditional audit approach that we sort of talked through earlier, will not allow you to yield the full benefits that it has to offer. Really, to maximize the benefits, the ROI from new technologies, auditors need to employ design thinking, redesign aspects of the audit activity, and also evolve the internal audit, team skill sets. So that's the three components working together. And in future webinars, we are going to examine other aspects of the next gen vision. We may very well have a series of process mining webinars, depending on how we do in Q&A, and we'll cover areas including like agile audit approach, which you see kind of down at the bottom, machine learning, artificial intelligence, you see at the top left, and certainly other areas that are of interest. So before we move into Q&A, I wanted to really recap and comment on what I see as both an exciting challenge and an exciting opportunity in the internal audit space. So, internal audit functions and other similarly tasked functions are really being asked to work more efficiently, provide better coverage, deeper insight, and advancements in technology such as the one we reviewed today, and such as those that we profiled on prior webinars like robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, really help to make this more possible, and at least more possible in a less resource and high-tech skill requisite manner. So internal auditors need to not just take the advancements in technology, but re-examine their processes and tools, arm themselves with the latest knowledge, and strive for ways to drive this expected improvement. So that's sort of part of the top right part of our framework, where we talk about strategy, vision, organizational alignment with other assurance functions, and talent management and maintaining skill sets. We've talked pretty extensively on other webinars about the ways in which auditors should seek to not just maintain, but constantly sort of refresh their skill sets. And there's just a tremendous body of knowledge that's out there and that's published by services firms like Protiviti, by technology leaders like Celonis, much of which is freely available, like this webinar and other online content. And I would just really encourage you and your teams to spend time looking at what's out there, keeping up with the latest trends, and taking that time to really explore what the opportunities are for adaptation and adoption of emerging tools to the internal audit agenda. And I really think that for those that have the ability and really more the willingness to learn and to invest some time, the opportunities for internal audit have never been greater. We're in a time of advanced analytics, of machine learning, of artificial intelligence, of robotics, of data being everywhere and that not changing anytime soon, of tremendous innovation and disruption, much of which is driven by technology implementation and changes to business models. And for the audit teams that can not just sort of keep up by hanging on to coattails, but can put themselves on par with or even half a step ahead of their business counterparts, we can really start to drive that deep insight and that business value that we're hearing with a loud and clear voice is expected of us. So we will now kind of move into the Q&A portion of the call. We have a few minutes to take questions, and if I just have a minute here, I will look at the Q&A queue and come up with some initial questions. So as I do that, there's a couple of questions that have come up that I think are along the lines of the same theme, and it's really sort of asking about kind of the intersect between tools like RPA, which has been heavily featured the last period of time, and analytics solutions like Celonis. And while we didn't profile it, those of you that were really paying attention probably saw along the bottom one of the tabs in the dashboard pack that we went through was an automation tab, and there are a number of logical and high value handoffs that exist between RPA solutions and Celonis process mining. So as we think through kind of how that might work, and and among the challenges that organizations face when they're trying to identify what to automate, how to automate, and how to measure the value of automation, Celonis can be used to help answer all three of those questions, right? So, typically you're looking for processes or even tasks that are not overly complex, don't have thousands of pathways, but that represent kind of a core for transaction processing. And then you're also looking for tasks that don't already have high levels of automation. So we saw earlier, through using the automation KPI and through using the Variant Explorer visualization, we can identify those two characteristics very easily. And we can say, these are the 4 or 5 variants that we want to automate, and they have low automation, and here's why. And here's not just why, but here's the value that we will realize by investing in automation. Throughput time is going to reduce, the rework rate's going to go down, rework and error rates are tied together. We're going to mitigate or better manage our segregation of duties risks. And then, of course, after the implementation of automation, you have the ability to go back and double check and validate that what you intended to deliver has been delivered. So Christoph, perhaps you can answer this next question. Lots of interest in sort of how do I get my hands on Celonis, sort of what are the ways in which this is sort of licensed and available, and maybe I'll give sort of the first half of the answer, which is as one of Celonis's consulting partners, Protiviti has access to, for internal audit purposes, to the Celonis toolkit and capability, and it becomes part of our toolkit. So, for those of you that work with us, when we work with you, when we engage with you, it's something that we bring along with us as part of our standard toolkit. But Christoph, maybe you can kind of expand on that and just sort of round out the other ways in which you're working with your clients.
Absolutely. Encourage you to reach out to Protiviti, who can help you along the journey here, all the way from doing a one snapshot assessment of the current process, but also help you through the strategic partnership with Celonis, how it might look like if you want to use it for continuously monitoring. I think that was one of the top polls answer, where would you see it working. So if you want to have it continuously use an action engine as that, then we talk about ongoing also licensing. Again, if you would like to reach out to Protiviti, who then get in contact with us and can help you with that, or obviously also Celonis directly. So really encourage you maybe do a snapshot for a review risk assessment of the processes, test it out, try it out together with Protiviti, and then discussing how it could be laid out and rolled out in the organization as a continuous monitoring solution.
Andrew, we can't hear you.
Oh, I beg your pardon. So Christoph, I think I'll leave the microphone with you. There's a theme of questions around, does it just work with a single ERP, or can you bring in sort of multiple systems, multiple data sources to view the full end-to-end?
Yeah. Process mining looks on a process end-to-end from a business perspective. Where does it start the process? Where does it end? Independently, how many departments are working on the process independently, what kind of IT systems are supported in each of the stages of this process. So it could be a different IT system in the beginning, then an ERP system maybe in the middle, and then a different IT system in the end. Now, first of all, looking end to end, where the process starts and ends, and then understand which kind of IT systems are supported. And normally there are multiple IT systems. But since all of these IT systems somehow talk with each other in order to support the process, we can take the same, for example, mapping table that they're using to reconstruct end to end. And Celonis is completely diagnostic. Obviously, as we learned before, it's normally integrated or connected to our ERP systems in the middle. But if we talk about the purchase-to-pay process, there could be another scan provider in the middle, or workflow system, or I think we talked a little bit about the RPA. We have a strategic partnership with a couple of them, like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Blue Prism. So reading from the bots as another source, and that can also be shown in Celonis. So really true end-to-end reconstruction and visualization of business processes.
Great, thanks, Christoph. And I'll maybe sort of kind of continue that and try to answer a series of other questions around, how does Celonis extract, ingest the data? And it was touched on briefly earlier, but Celonis and Christoph will certainly kind of add here. But Celonis has created and maintains a very comprehensive content or app store that includes sort of a couple of key kind of types of categories of content. First is those data connectors or data extract capabilities that allow you to connect to or extract data from a wide range of source systems. Just a handful of them were shown on an earlier slide. All the major ERPs and other sort of enterprise platforms like that are commonly in use, like Salesforce and Workday and Ariba and Concur and Coupa and Remedy and Jira, and the list goes on. So a lot of that content to capture that data, normalize it, prepare it for Celonis use exists in the App Store, in the content library. That's a tremendous. We've experienced that as being a tremendous accelerator, and one of the things that allows an organization and a consulting partner like Protiviti to really shortcut what is commonly a very challenging aspect of conducting a data analytics project. And then the second type of content is really basically the dashboards that you saw earlier. Much of what you saw exists sort of quote unquote out of the box, drag and drop. You just install the content pack from the App Store and you have the base level dashboards available. Obviously you can kind of customize and add like the SOD and the Benfords that we kind of customized and added. You can add custom content very easily. We could have easily shown you how to build a dashboard in like 2 minutes. If you're familiar with the other contemporary visualizations tools, it's the same kind of approach. So hopefully that addresses kind of some of those types of questions. Christoph, just as we're sort of wrapping up here, are there any other additional comments or any questions that you see that you would like to make sure you address?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of questions or comments. How fast can we connect it? Obviously, you touched quickly on that, but there's a big focus on developing Celonis in the past, but also in the future. So obviously, we don't want the department to focus on the data preparation, anything. So we reduce the time to value to you, start seeing the insights. And with the connectors, as Andrew said, I think there are a lot of questions around that. Maybe also makes sense to do a proof of value together with Protiviti or Celonis to see, hey, does it work? Does it bring value to my organization or my department? And see that what kind of insight it brings into my process. So always happy to talk further on that.
Great, thanks, Christoph. And then I think just one other theme of questions we can address, and we have a couple more minutes, is around, I guess, technical skills required to use this kind of solution. And there's really sort of three types of user. There's the core user that just interacts with the pre-built analytics and is familiar with how to browse and navigate and apply filters. That requires very limited technical capability. There's a sort of a middle level user, an analyst level, that actually kind of designs and publishes the dashboards, and there's again a rich catalog of pre-built components that are drag and drop, but you can also apply some scripting behind those components if necessary, and it's common querying language that's used. So I would say, my view of that is a mid-level technical capability. And then if you need to do any of the, I think, more custom data modeling, that takes a sort of a more experienced data person. But again, I think in most cases, and the pretty significant majority of cases where we've used Celonis or where we've seen it used, much of what is available in the App Store gets you to that point where you really don't need to do a tremendous amount of data modeling, other than to kind of work through any kind of customizations you may have in your enterprise platform. So Christoph, I'll just sort of pause for a second to see if on that skills question, you have anything else you'd like to address.
The action handling skill?
No, the skills, I guess the technical skills required to deploy, make use of Celonis.
Yeah, there are different levels, as you already said, like a fewer level where you just learn how to click and filter down and do the bookmarks, as Andrew showed you before, so more on a dashboard level. The business user, I would say, and also creating new analysis where we bring a lot of analysis with a solution like segregation of data. Obviously, it's completely free to define new components and new analysis and specific elements that you would like to learn about the process can be shown. And then the third one would be more the data engineer level, where you actually connect to the system, taking consideration any customized setting of an SAP system, and learn that. And the last level would be required a little bit of SQL knowledge, but also Protiviti can help with that. And I think the overall solution makes it possible that it's not too technical. So a common, if you want to do it yourself or set it up, it required a common knowledge about the IT system like SAP or Oracle, and then also SQL skills to transform the data from the raw table, how they are stored in the systems, to the format we call it event table that Celonis needs to reconstruct and visualize the process.
Great, thanks, Christoph. So I think just one final kind of question I'll try and address is emphatically no, not just for use on procure to pay. I think we've mentioned a number of other processes, but all of the traditional financial processes, order to cash, subsets of APAR, record to report, warehouse management, production planning, IT service, IT incident management, and anti-money laundering, financial crimes. There's a long list, more than I have time. I could probably go on for 30 minutes just listing them out, but more than I have time to cover. But really, any business process that creates a transactional event, that creates a timestamp and a way to identify the activity associated with that timestamp, Celonis can be layered on top of to create the visualization of the analytics that we've shown you and walked through with you today. So I think we're close to time. So I just want to say a huge thanks to Christoph for being not just an excellent partner for us, but also for the quality of insights that you've shared over the last hour or so. Lark, who gave the introduction, thanks for all of your help and those in your team in getting us prepared for and keeping us on track. And then I think for all of the attendees, thanks for showing so much interest. Lots of questions that we didn't get to, we'll do our best to try and respond to them. And if there's enough there, then we'll we'll do another one of these that sort of maybe extends the discussion and covers some of those themes. You should certainly feel free to reach out to us. We've got contact information that's been sitting on the screen for a while, and you can download the presentations. And then we've got some other content that's available through our website that, again, should help with some of the topics and contents. We'd certainly be glad to speak through any questions that you have or comments you have for us. So I think that's it today. Everyone, thanks for your time. I guess good luck with everything, and hopefully the information we've shared will help you make progress, increasing your use of data and enabling technologies as you move towards next gen for internal audit and help your organizations face the future with confidence. Thank you.